Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to make a mixed media journal cover, but you can do the exact same steps and do an art journal page. So I have about 28 pages, got a couple extra sheets here, and then this art journal I'm going to call done. So it's time to decorate the cover. Here's the front of the Canson Mixed Media Art Journal. This is the 7 by 10. And then we have the back. Now I take them off the coils so I can work flat. And when I have about 30 sheets, I assemble it back in. So right now I want to cover this with the gesso. And as you can see, it's dark blue. So we really definitely need to knock that back. Now, by rights, it's a little bit smooth, and it probably would have benefited from taking a sanding block and sanding it down. The gesso would have stuck a little bit more. So this is a case of do as I say, not as I'm doing. When you're putting the gesso on, because you will need to put more than one coat, thin coats, let them dry in between. Otherwise, they kind of lift up, which you're going to see right away here. So while this I've let dry for a little bit and I'm putting more gesso on, and then I'm going to show you another way, a faster way of applying gesso so that you don't get brush marks, is by brayering it on. And this I love because it's really quick and easy. But here, because the first layer wasn't quite dry, it is lifting up a little bit. Again, do as I say, not as I do. Let it dry in between, sand it, and you can prevent these problems. So this sat for quite a while, and I was busy out in the yard. It's springtime on Vancouver Island, and so I've been gardening. So that was the inspiration for this cover. Got this napkin from Ninny's napkin is called Early Magic. I'll put a link to Ninny's in the description box below. You can get napkins and other mixed media products. When you are at the website, Ninny's website, she often posts the napkin open like this. Take a look because you can see, are they four identicals? Are they a strip across? And you will have a better idea of how you can use it. When I start using it, I release it from the square shape. I cut off the excess, just kind of rough cut, and that allows me to addition it on the page. And I get a better idea of what I can do with it, how it will fit on whatever substrate I have chosen to use it on. Now, I love this napkin. It is everything springtime, bright, beautiful colors. And I thought it would make a great focal image on my art journal. But I wanted to add texture. I love texture on journal covers, on book covers that I do. It's just something about holding it and feeling that texture. And here I wanted something of interest in the background, but I know I'm going to go with a very light background. I want a subtle background. So I thought if I added the texture, there's something there, there's interest, but it's not going to overtake the focal image. This stencil is called Lilacs. It's from the Crafters Workshop, and I'm going to use TCW, the Crafters Workshop modeling paste through the stencil. And as you can see, I'm applying it with a key card. I find the best success using TCW modeling paste and a key card. Getting it smooth, and then I'm going to position this in another place across the top. And I can turn it. However, I do want to avoid getting that stencil on top of where it's wet. You might have to stop in between and dry. You can use a heat tool with the modeling paste. Just don't put it too close, and you don't want it to bubble unless you want it to bubble and have that effect. So I put it there, and at this minute I'm thinking, okay, I've got the two across the top, the lilacs. And then I'm going to just glue the focal image napkin down below. I'm going fairly simple, but I think it's going to look lovely. Now the excess that goes off you can use your finger like this, or you can use your um, palette knife, scrape it off. Now, because this is a spiral bound cover, I want to make sure that I get all that modeling paste out of the holes here. If it dries before you get there, you still can get it off. It can come off either way. Then I decided, after cleaning my stencil, I'm going to add a third area with the modeling paste, with the texture. Now, if you don't have modeling paste, you can use spackling or drywall paste that you can get at the hardware store. If I'm doing it in my art journal, it doesn't need to be archival. Anything that I've done with the spackling has really stayed well. So after putting that, I'm just cleaning out the holes here again, and then I'm going to set this to dry and move along to the next part, which is preparing the napkin. I'm peeling off the 2 excess layers. Yippee, the 2 layers came off together. Just going to see where I want this, if I'm going to cut off any of it, but it looks like I'm using pretty much the entirety. Now, this background is white, so if I just glued it on as it was, it would, for the most part, disappear, but it'll add some bulk. So what I like to do is water cut it. I'm taking a liner brush and I'm just using a little bit of water, going little section by little section, and cutting off the white part of the napkin that I don't want. This gives you a deckled edge and it makes it so that you don't see a hard line or bulk around your focal image. You can go, I'm going right up to the flowers, but you can leave a little bit if that's where your comfort zone. And the more you practice this, the better you get at it. I find this very zen-like and very, relaxing. Now there's some white parts in between the flowers. You can leave that if you don't feel comfortable, or you can do as I'm doing and cutting that out as well. Again, depends on how comfortable you are doing that process. So I'm positioning this in here, but now I want to colorize the background. And I know I want to keep it light. So I am just using unbleached titanium, which is kind of an ivory color, and white gesso. More white gesso than the unbleached titanium. And I'm spreading that on with a makeup sponge. I'm going right over top of the modeling paste, the stenciling modeling paste that I have. I just want a mottled type background. This gives a couple different tones, but it's going to be very light, which means I can glue my napkin down without worry that something from the background that's dark is going to come through the napkin and distort my focal image. I'm liking how this is looking, and then I decide I'm going to add some pink. So I get some quinacridone magenta, very little on my makeup sponge, and I'm rubbing that into the unbleached titanium white gesso background over top of the stenciling, the modeling paste stenciling, and I love it. It is giving a beautiful, soft, subtle color that absolutely adore. So quite happy with that combination and making a mental note. The unbleached titanium with the quinacridone magenta makes this coral color that I am going to use on future projects. So always make a note, have a book on the side and make a note of things that you don't plan but turn out. Now I'm going to put the napkin, glue the napkin down low. So I'm not going to worry about putting too much pink down there. And then I decide, oh, I want some script stamp. I love having script stamp in the background, but I'm using my archival inks because it's less bold than using black acrylic paint. And I just want a little bit of this detail in the background. And again, I'm avoiding where, for the most part, the napkin is going to be glued down because I don't want that to come through the napkin. Now, once you do stamp with archival ink, give it a little blast with the heat tool before you move on. It is permanent, but it needs to dry. This is a water drop stamp, and I am putting quinacridone magenta paint on it, and I am stamping with that. This is a nice little small scale detail that, again, is adding some of that pink into the background and just adding one more layer. So if you are starting, my advice to you with stamps, with stencils, collect smaller scale stamps and stencils. You will use them on a multitude of pages. It's good to have in your stash. These very non-generic or generic kind of stamps. They go on any kind of background, no matter what your theme. So I'm just adding more of this, again, avoiding the area directly underneath where the focal image will go. Using the quinacridone magenta that I have on the makeup sponge just to edge my cover or art journal page if you're doing an art journal page. And then I'm going to basically colorize the back of this journal cover. Now, my art journals, typically I don't do the backs. I don't know why I decided to do it, but I went through the effort of gessoing this. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to finish this off. I kind of got a little bit too bright here. Let it dry or wipe it off with a baby wipe and then keep adding color. So basically, I'm doing a simplified version of the front cover. I am not going to put texture on the back. I don't think that's necessary, but I am going to put the same colors, the same stamping, um, just so that the front and the back are a match pair. And while in the front, there was a lot of pausing and thinking and trying to decide what my next step is. Doing the back cover here, I know where I'm going. I know what works. Now, the script was a little too bold, so I'm just taking a little bit of white gesso and lightly brushing it over to knock it back. I don't want it so bold. And here I'm stamping with that water drop stamp with what the quinacridone magenta acrylic paint. When you use acrylic paint with your stamps, make sure you take time to spray them with your Murphy's oil soap, throw them in a bucket of water, and make sure you get that acrylic paint off. Then I thought I'm going to take that same stencil, that lilac stencil, and I am going to stencil on with white acrylic paint. I'm not using my gesso. It's not as opaque as my white paint. So I'm just stenciling here with the white paint and to get a very, very subtle pattern of that lilac. So it goes with the front. Spoiler alert, I end up changing this because I discover something else, but it is a nice subtle effect that I do really, really love. Not everything that you add to a page or a cover needs to be big and bold. So I'm just giving that a dry before I move to the next step. So there's my front and my back. And I'm ready to glue my napkin down. And I'm going to use Fluid Matte Medium. I use the Liquitex brand. I'm putting a generous amount underneath and then on top to seal it. And I get a lot on the brush. I find that when you have more on the brush, there's less friction and you're less likely to rip the napkin. Because, of course, the napkin will get very fragile when it gets wet. I just wanted to seal it in case I do overpainting. Now I'm grabbing some gold paint here on a makeup sponge and I'm lightly applying this to the textured area, the modeling paste, the stenciling. And again, happy circumstance. I love it. When it mixes with the pink, it is making kind of a rose gold coral color. It's adding shimmer to my cover. Again, loving it. So not something I thought out. So then I decide, I'm going to do that on the back. I'm going to add a couple more with the gold through that stencil. So I've added the gold there. It's not giving me enough bang for my buck. So I do grab the quinacridone magenta here to get that corally color, and I'm loving it. So my front and my back cover really match. Now, when I do book journals, gratitude journals, I do the front and the back. So while I don't typically do it for my art journal, this would be the process I was doing if I'm doing a gratitude journal or a notebook kind of journal and doing the covers. Loving that. So, so nice. And again, I'm making a mental note. The quinacridone magenta with gold makes this rose gold color. I'm grabbing some black on the makeup sponge and edging my front and back cover. This is just kind of framing the page, finishing details. Because at this point, I'm thinking I'm going to put a sentiment on there. In all likelihood, it has black lettering. You want it to all tie in together. There we go. Then I grab this stencil from it's not Crafter's Workshop. It is some Stamperia, and it's like dictionary page. And I'm using a small stencil brush from the Crafter's Workshop and stenciling the word imagine, create, dream on the front, and then the same words on the back. Getting a little bit of paint on the makeup sponge or on the stencil brush and just putting it in. So instead of cutting out the sentiment like I normally do, I decided to do that. These are just the right size and it just seems to fit. Debating whether I should put a fourth one, but there's really not room, and I decide that I'll just put some on the back. Here, I got a little heavy-handed. I made kind of a smudge, but you can take a baby wipe. Everything underneath is permanent, so I can clean it up, and when it's dry, re-stencil the word back in. Now, my cover is completely dried overnight. I'm loving the texture. I'm loving the colors, how this all came together. But before I put it back together, I am going to give it a coat of Minwax polyacrylic varnish in satin. I get this from the hardware store. This is a baker's rack that I got from the dollar store, and I use it when I varnish my mini canvases, journal covers. You want to give this a gentle stir. I'm just using the end of my stencil brush. It's what's close at hand. Cleaning it off with the brush. And then I'm going to, on the front, put 2 coats of the satin varnish. Art journal pages, I typically do not varnish. I don't have a need. They don't stick together. Nothing bad happens. But if I make fridge magnets or canvases or journal covers, I use the Minwax polyacrylic varnish. So I just brush it on, give it a good, let it dry, and then I will give it a second coat. Here are the close-ups of the finished art journal cover. I hope you learned something during this video. Let me know in the comment section below what that was. Until next time, go get creative.